Hello and welcome to the Auto Loons YouTube channel for another episode of Small Cars, Small Reviews. After dabbling into some more diecast manufacturers and different scales, we are going back to some good old 1x64 Hot Wheels. In this episode, we've got two generations of the same car, the Honda NSX. We've already discussed this particular model, the original Honda NSX from the 1990s. Last time it was seen in the company of some Nissan contemporaries, but this is purely an NSX video. With it, we have the new generation model, the 2017 Acura NSX. Acura is sort of Honda's performance brand in the US, and that's what Hot Wheels follows. Everywhere else, these cars are sold with the Honda badge. I've actually been keeping this one packaged up to kind of share my first impressions with you guys on camera. So I think it's about time we get out of the box and next to its sort of predecessor. This model is actually from the 2019 Exotics series, 9 of 10. I have a few more from this series that, and I did try to complete the collection from the 2019 Exotics series, but couldn't quite complete it in time. So yeah, let's get to unboxing this. And there we have it. The 2019 Exotics series has the NSX in a nice deep shade of blue with the probably like emulating a carbon roof. The detailing is nice. The sort of fading around the shut lines where the doors and the sills meet, I don't know if that's intentional or is there some kind of paint degradation of the model. It does look a little intentional to kind of accentuate the car's sharpness and aggressive aero. But overall, I think it's a very nicely detailed model. Yes, the headlamps are sort of sticker design instead of like indents, but with the modern cars, that kind of detailing in this scale at this price, I suppose it's acceptable. At least the vents are not just stickers that actually, as you can see, they're like cut out. The vents and the grille and the front logo is on a sort of raised platform. Not a perfect example because of the color has spilled over onto the Acura badge, but that's acceptable at this scale. I would have liked this to be kind of colored in a bit as well. These air intakes or the louvers over the wheel arches here and the bonnet. But that's, I suppose, again, not to be too nitpicky. Interior is somewhat decently detailed as well, about as decent as you would expect a Hot Wheels model to be. This is the better detailing. This is a mid-engined car, so you can see that there. The rear end as well. We don't have sort of indented or engraved tail lamps, but the shape is there, very nicely sort of illustrated, and the stickers highlighting where the lights would be, especially this LED strip across. The exhaust, bit of a letdown. Could have been a better detail considering that the actual car has a nice looking exhaust, but again, at this price and this scale, I won't be complaining too much considering there is so much to do with a model as cleverly designed as the NSX. But before we talk about the car that this model is based on, let's go back to the original. The first NSX was renowned for its fine-tuned sporty performance with development inputs from then F1 champion and F1 legend Ayrton Senna. The Honda NSX was meant to be Honda's rival to Ferrari in the mid-engine sports car department, or that entire scene which was like dominated by the Italians at the time. And with the new one, Honda has tried to do just that. So more than a decade between them, and yet they share some of their ethos today. Mid-engine in the 90s, mid-engine today. The old one had a V6, the new one has a twin-turbo V6, but it's much more clever with 3 electric motors. So it's a hybrid sports car. The modern-day NSX powertrain is mated to a 9-speed dual-clutch gearbox and a direct drive motor that covers up for the lag of the twin-turbo engine. Remember I mentioned 3 electric motors? That's 1 in the back with the engine, and 2 on the front, 1 for each wheel. So you basically have all-wheel drive, immediate response from the electric motors, and a 3.5-liter turbo V6 for a total output of around 573 brake horsepower, 500 of which comes from that 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 alone. One of the core points of the original was to be nimble, to be light. And the new one, with all its modern-day hybrid technology, is on the heavier side. From all the reviews I have seen of the actual Honda NSX, it seems Honda was able to counter it with clever engineering to make it quick and responsive, and the power and delivery kind of were able to negate some of the weight aspect of its powertrain. Yes, the NSX has been around for almost 4 years now, but it's still a future-thinking sports car. And perhaps in some ways you could say it was released too early, like too ahead of its time, because while everybody else is looking at hybridization of their performance departments, the NSX has already done it, and impressively so. But because of that leap in technology, the NSX sort of became too expensive. Yes, 573 horsepower is nothing to laugh at, but at a time when other cars with traditional combustion engines were putting out more power, were giving more response, were being more exciting, and probably at like slightly lower prices, the NSX sort of lost its appeal in front of them, because the next step was the hypercar class, where you had the likes of the LaFerrari 918 and P1, who had already done the hybrid engine extreme performance scene, nearing around 850 plus to around 1000 brake horsepower. And you had more and more new generation electrified like supercars and hypercars being announced left, right, and center. So the NSX, for all its abilities and technology, kind of got caught in between old school tech for lower price that offered more power and more fun, and supercar class, which offered way more power and sort of more plush experience, which would sort of define the premium for those cars. The NSX was also designed to be a daily usable supercar killer hybrid sports car, and maybe that was one of the reasons that it didn't do so well, because its looks didn't match what it could do, in some people's perspectives, and I assume that's maybe why it didn't catch on as well as one would expect it to. Unless you know what it is, it's easy to lose it in the crowd of Lamborghinis and Jaguars and even Porsches. A modern day 911 Turbo would just be a little more noticeable as a Porsche, whereas this would be something that's trying to fit in instead of trying to look its own wow thing. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison of 2017 Acura NSX and the original. But before that, I have a little treat for you, because this is a model that I didn't even realize had a connection between this car and this car. So after Honda had discontinued the original NSX, many sports car enthusiasts were looking forward to what they would do next, because it's such a promising moniker, such a huge history and heritage. It didn't make sense for them to just completely shut it down. There just had to be a new one. And Honda did introduce a few concepts and teasers for the new NSX in the early 2000s, way before an official successor was confirmed. And then there was a particular concept showcased in 2003 as the Honda Sports Car concept, or the HSC. And turns out I have a Hot Wheels for that as well. So this is the HSC concept, Honda sports car concept from 2003, to be a successor to this, the Honda NSX. You immediately see some of the similarities and the evolution of the original sports car to the next generation mid-engine Honda sports car. The model is actually cooler than the concept, because it has these like blacked out window tints and headlamps. Powertrain details for the Honda sports car concept, or HSC concept. Mid-mounted 3.5-liter VTEC V6, and that had a 6-speed transmission. Reports say that Honda did mention that it would indicate a successor. Honda did mention that it intended to kind of stay in the sports car market with something like this, but the project was stalled for a couple of years. And then CEO Takeo Fukui came out and said this was just a test concept, and that the new car would feature a Honda F1 inspired V10, and that might be ready by 2009. But it was actually a whole 9 years before the NSX moniker was revived. A whole 9 years after 2003, that is. So that's maybe like 12 to 13 years since the original NSX was discontinued. And that was the 2012 NSX concept, which introduced the idea of a hybrid all-wheel drive powertrain with a V6 engine and 3 motors. The new NSX was launched in 2017. So there was another 5-year gap. And maybe that's part of the problem. Honda took so long to introduce the new NSX that the original The name didn't have the pull that it should have had. I think it's time we took a side-by-side look at the past and the present. On the base of these models, you'd think the old school one had a bit, like most cars of the time, had a more wedge-like shape. It was longer, the tail was considerably higher than the nose, and it had a classic 90s spoiler. The modern day mid-engine supercar is a bit more balanced. It's topped, the overhangs are shorter, and just looks more proportionate and better suited for, handling tight and twisty corners. And on the back, we can kind of see some of the ethos carrying through in terms of the aggressive rear end design, the connected the linked tail lamp design of the old and the new cars. Underneath here you'll have 3.5 liter V6 turbos, different generations. This one barely visible because of the darker tint, but still there it is, mid-engined, just behind the driver. And with the new one, it just looks way cooler, and the detailing on the Hot Wheels model is also very impressive for something that's barely visible. In fact, even the real car also, this engine bay does look gorgeous. Interior details a bit more visible for the new model because it's open open windows. The dashboard layout does look a lot like the actual NSX, quite Honda. And maybe that was another factor that I heard in a lot of the reviews, that inside the NSX, it just didn't feel as special as some of its competitors. It just felt like you were in a Honda. In terms of the Hot Wheels model design as well, I really like this metallic blue finish over this almost candy orange paint of the original NSX. Of course, both cars are available in other colors as well, depending on which series of Hot Wheels you're able to get your hands on. But it is cool to see the evolution of a sports car through the eras, from the last of the originals to a midway concept to then final rebirth. That's all for this episode, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the models and of the Honda NSX in the comments below, and make sure you check out the Auto Loons blog, link in description. It's where we are far more active with talking about the new cars that come out and talking about action around Formula 1 as well. That's it, guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for plenty more videos to come, and I'll see you all next time.